This is Kelly J. Patriot with Liberty Report. We're coming to you from AmFest in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm very proud to have a gentleman who is, I would consider, an expert on what happened on 9/11, not with regard to the towers, but a very interesting side story, but very important relating to Building 7. We're very glad to have Richard Gage. Richard, how are you?
I'm doing good, Kelly. Awesome to meet you. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, you too, Richard. So we had a chance to chat a little bit earlier, and I know a little bit about this building, and I think people know a little bits and pieces, but you know the whole story. So I'll go ahead and have you tell us a little about your background and how you got involved in this project, and then we'll get through some of the information relating to Building 7. It's amazing.
Well, thank you. Here we are at the booth in Phoenix at AmFest, and lots of people coming by, and I'm glad we got a chance to meet Kelly, because Building 7 is one of the most easiest way that we have of sharing a big bad truth about 9/11.
Absolutely.
The World Trade Center destruction. I started on this in 2006, and I was 5 years late to the party. I had no idea. I'd never heard any other alternative explanation as to what happened at the World Trade Center until this interview. I was minding my own business, riding along the street. Coming back from a construction observation meeting, and I heard David Ray Griffin on the radio, which he's written 14 books now on this subject, including one large volume on Building 7 itself. So this building woke me up. I didn't know there was a third tower that collapsed on 9/11. 5:20 in the afternoon, 47 stories, part of the World Trade Center complex. After witnesses heard explosions.
What was the timing, Richard, between the two main buildings going down and then Building 7?
7 hours.
7 hours, 7 hours. So what did you find out initially here, and what piqued your interest?
So after the witnesses heard explosions, we have half a dozen of them easily on tape, like the ground shaking under my feet, like I wanted to grab onto something. One of them says, then the building comes down. We have 11 videos of this building's collapse, straight down, uniformly, symmetrically into its own footprint in under 7 seconds. Now that's free fall acceleration. That's as fast as this iPhone case of falling. What does that mean? That means not one of the 80 columns in this building gave any resistance for at least a third of that building's 7-second fall. Well, where did they go? There's 40,000 tons of structural steel here, designed 5 times stronger than it needed to be to support that building.
Hey, Richard, let me just interject here. What is your background?
I'm an architect, 30 years of experience, worked on many steel frame, fire protected high-rises in my career.
And I wanted the audience to understand and know that you've got a little background and knowledge in this, so there's a good basis for what you have to say.
Yes, but you don't need that background and knowledge to actually understand what I and millions of other Americans are saying, screaming actually, all around the world. Because a building can't fall at free fall acceleration by fire, the official cause of this building's collapse, office fires. In fact, we've never in history lost a steel frame, fire protected structure ever. Not one, before
Incredible.
or since 9/11. So this building's collapse, this should be the most studied building failure ever. And what do we find in the aftermath of Building 7? We find evidence of ignited and unignited thermite incendiaries. Thermite is an incendiary used by the military to cut through steel like a hot knife through butter. So what we've got is the forensic evidence and eyewitness testimony in molten metal, in previously molten iron microspheres. This is evidence of ignited thermite.
An intentional event.
Well, it becomes very intentional. Let's hold that thought for a moment,
Okay.
because the all of this molten iron, it turns out to be not molten steel, but iron. That is one of the key byproducts of the thermite ignition process. Molten iron at 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The office fires in this building were only about 500 degrees, maybe 1,000 degrees at the hottest. But we have evidence of 4,000 degrees in terms of the evaporation of the ends of the steel beams that Jonathan Barnett, fire protection engineer, the author of the FEMA report that came out in May of 2002, talks about. That's 4,000 degrees to begin to evaporate steel. And we have molten iron, that's minimum 3,000 degrees running molten iron. So we have photographs of that. So we have photographs and studies of the partially
Destroyed?
nope, molten iron microspheres that are previously molten is what I was trying to say.
Okay.
And so how do they get in all the World Trade Center dust that the U.S. Geological Survey does detailed analysis of in their particle atlas of the World Trade Center dust in 2006? So this is incredible evidence, 4 tons of evidence, up to 6% of all the World Trade Center dust samples are previously molten iron microspheres, about the diameter of a human hair. Now, how did they get there? The EPA doesn't know, but the EPA says these are a signature component of the World Trade Center dust. And so they don't know how they got there. The USGS doesn't know how they got there, but they did get there. So how did they get there?
This doesn't seem to make sense.
No, molten iron is the byproduct of thermite again. What's the other byproduct of thermite? Aluminum oxide ash, like a smoke, it looks like. So what do we have flying out of the World Trade Center towers at 80 miles an hour, laterally? 4-ton and 8-ton structural steel sections landing 600 feet in every direction. They were trailed by thick white smoke clouds. Steel is not flammable in office fire conditions. So why are the ends of the beams and the columns trailing thick white smoke clouds? They are burning. What is burning them? That's the job of thermite. So all of that is the evidence of ignited thermite. Do we have any evidence of unignited thermite in the World Trade Center towers? Oh yeah, it's deep and abiding. We have the study of the steel by the 8 international scientists led by Niels Harrit in Copenhagen. And they get real curious because they see what look like paint chips in all of the dust samples, but they're attracted to a magnet, so they have a high iron content. They go, whoa, we got to get to the bottom of this. They do X-ray energy dispersive spectroscopy and they find what? The ingredients of thermite, iron oxide, which is essentially rust, aluminum powder, which shouldn't be there at all. And so they have the evidence of thermite in these paint chips. They get real curious. They zoom in 50,000 times with an electron microscope. What do they find? They find iron oxide rhomboidal-shaped crystals at the nanoscale, 1,000 times smaller, where's my hair, than the diameter of a human hair. Wait,
Go ahead.
it gets
There's
better.
There's more.
Iron oxide crystals and aluminum platelets at the nanoscale.
So
This stuff is
what's that
extremely
mean?
sophisticated. It's developed only in the most advanced contracting laboratories. This is not made in a cave in Afghanistan. This is nano-sized particles or super thermite developed by Lawrence Livermore Lab,
Right.
Los Alamos Lab, before 9/11. And this stuff is found in all the World Trade Center dust in these small red-gray chips, dual layered. So
Right.
they were applied by a paint. And they find about, by extrapolation, 4 tons of this stuff. This is not just here and there. Huge quantities of this stuff. So how
What does that mean, and what makes sense of this, or what are your thoughts in terms of interpreting that data?
well, the team of 8 scientists put this in the Bentham Open Chemical Physics Journal, and they declared, this came out in 2009, this peer-reviewed paper, and they determined that this material is exothermic, meaning thermitic, meaning pyrotechnic, meaning explosives or thermitic, what's that word? Material, which should not be in all the World Trade Center dust samples, every one of them. It's evidence of unignited thermite. So we have ignited thermite, which we talked about earlier, now unignited thermite. This shows us how the towers came down. There's no question, because when they take these chips of Nano-Thermite and they put it in a heater, a differential scanning calorimeter, and they measure the heat coming off of it, it's extraordinary. They ignite, just like the peer-reviewed literature did from Lawrence Livermore Lab, Los Alamos Lab, at 758 degrees. This stuff ignites. What does it produce when it ignites? Molten iron microspheres. So we know exactly how those previously molten iron microspheres were created, by these red-gray chips found in all the dust. So this is extremely sophisticated scientific method that shows us how the towers were brought down and what the evidence is for bringing them down, because the ends of the beams were molten iron also.
So I think the bottom line is here that it was not by just simply an office fire. And what did they determine the cause was? And then we'll go back to what was said the day before, and then what we know about some work done at the building in the weeks prior to the incident.
Well, one step at a time. We know that the towers were full of explosive evidence, high energy explosives, because of the lateral ejection, the forcing out at 80 miles an hour of those 4-ton structural steel sections landing 600 feet in every direction.
Office fire wouldn't have done that.
Office fire can't do that. Office fires is the official narrative of how the towers came down too, because the jet fuel started fires up there. There's no jet fuel in Building 7, of course, wasn't hit by a plane. But jet fuel only burns in the Twin Towers at 600 degrees Fahrenheit. We know that because ME Petroleum, the manufacturer of jet fuel, says that in their literature very clearly. So office fires have never brought down a steel frame skyscraper. And of course the towers were hit by planes. They broke a few columns, but it's the manner in which the building is being destroyed, the upper part above the point of jet plane impacts, right, that drove the rest of the building down to the ground. That's the official narrative. Right. But what we see is it's collapsing in the upper 15 stories in the case of the North Tower, collapsing on itself while ejecting isolated explosive jets called squibs in the controlled demolition industry. It doesn't drive the rest of the building down. It's destroyed itself in the first 4 seconds. Then, after witnesses, 186 exactly so far, from the oral histories recorded on tape of the first responders in the first month after 9/11, they hear explosions, and then all this stuff starts happening. And so we have that. You couple all of this evidence together, and you get explosive demolition of the Twin Towers.
And also Building 7?
Building 7, an implosion, a very classic implosion, just like the old hotels nearby here in Las Vegas. With the Twin Towers, very explosive event, very, very different.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, and we also talked initially, and I know a little bit about this, but you obviously know a lot more, but what happened the day before of 9/11 and the 2 towers in Building 7 going down? Wasn't there an announcement of some type that day?
Oh, right. You have an announcement by Donald Rumsfeld saying we've got a war that we're having, and it's a battle for finding this missing money, or unaccounted for $2.3 trillion in the Pentagon budget. That was the day before 9/11. Yeah. It was forgotten about the day after 9/11.
And I think Pentagon right now is missing a whole lot of money too.
Well, yeah, I think it went to Ukraine.
Probably. And one other thing that I think people need to know and understand as part of this process is Rumsfeld says we're missing money. Where was that missing money located? Was some of that in Building 7?
Well, I don't know about that. Building 7 has set a very curious tenants, the CIA, the IRS, the Department of Defense, but the Securities and Exchange Commission was located on the 13th floor where the worst fires were and were quite suspicious. They lost thousands of cases related to, thousands of files related to hundreds of cases, like Enron, WorldCom against Wall Street companies. So we've got to get a real investigation as to those fires and where those cases, they're dead in the water now because they claim that all that evidence is gone.
That's convenient, isn't it? And a couple weeks before, my understanding was is they had some kind of work going on to the at or underneath the building. What do you know about that?
Building 7 did not have a basement. It was built over the Con Edison electrical substation on the surface. But under the Twin Towers in Building 6 in particular, the Treasury Department, yes, there were stories of a gold heist actually going on the morning of 9/11. So I don't have the evidence or the research for that in particular.
Right. What I have heard, and once again, subject to verification, I had heard that there was some type of work in the weeks before 9/11. I don't know if it was under the towers or I thought it was maybe Building 7, but there was a lot of explosives going on that day, and I had heard that there was work being done on an elevator or something where they potentially had planted explosives in advance of 9/11.
Yeah, in fact, Ace Elevator had the contract for the largest elevator modernization in history, the 9 months prior to 9/11. Ace Elevator came out of nowhere to get this contract. Otis Elevator had installed and had been operating these elevators, maintaining them for the life of this building. And Ace Elevator had 85 employees in the building. And they fled when the planes hit the towers or before. And we want to know the circumstances around that because they're the experts in how to operate these cabs. They could have helped the first responders rescue these victims, but it was quite a scandal documented in USA Today that they actually fled. The elevator modernizations documented in Elevator World in March of 2001.
Right. I'll tell you what, Richard, this is amazing. I know a lot of people had suspicions about 911. What we found out more recently is that it seems to be our government was involved with that, just like January 6th and just like a lot of other things. Any final thoughts in terms of what you've learned about this building and anything going forward to let the people think about?
Right. I think the destruction of the World Trade Center was the key event, in addition to the attack on the Pentagon, which was enabled the U.S. to declare war, that it was an act of war, not just economic terror or cultural terror for the destruction of the Twin Towers, but it was the manipulation of the American people by the loss of life, 3,300 people, well, depending on how you count, 2,700 people by most measures, lost and jumping out of these buildings. And that emotional shock and awe on us, the American people, is what encouraged us to allow our elected representatives to give power to the Bush administration to go to war in Afghanistan and Iraq and invade them. So what did that set up? Trillions of dollars lost, 6.5 trillion global dollars in a global war of terror since then. The loss of our civil liberties through the Patriot Act, the Military Commissions Act, National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, in which any of us can be arrested without a right to a lawyer, a trial, a jury. We can be tortured and even assassinated, and it's happened. So that set up a whole lot of problems for us with regard to our civil liberties, which were taken advantage of with the ensuing COVID pandemic and other false flag operations on different scales. So we've got to get to the bottom of 9/11 and what really happened there. But we got to wake up, because now we're facing additional threats or promises of cyber attacks by the
Right,
World
right.
Economic Forum, et cetera.
Right. Yeah. I tell you what, we need to trust God, not the government, because it seems like the government is involved in a lot of things that don't really have we the people's best interest at heart. And I think this is another prime example of that. Well, Richard, I greatly appreciate you speaking with us here today. And can you give us some information with regard to how people can follow you? I see a lot of books and videos here available. So why don't you give us a little heads up on what you have here and how people can contact you, support you, and get your products here, get your books and videos.
You bet. We've given away 1,000 almost of these brochures. There's 14,000 people here. This is an incredible conference.
Yeah, great event.
And it's got the evidence, and you can find this. You can download it and print hundreds of them and send it to every architect and engineer. You can find your elected representatives. All the evidence is outlined. We talked about some of it today. And also, we have 40 high-rise architects, structural engineers, metallurgists, chemists, physicists, control demolition experts, laying out all the evidence in 9/11 explosive evidence. Experts speak out. And that is the best documentary. We made this 10 years ago, and it is extraordinary.
What's that entitled?
9/11 explosive evidence. Experts speak out. You can find it in our store and online, Richard Gage, 911.org.
That's awesome, Richard. Well, I greatly appreciate you being with us. This is an unbelievable weekend here in Phoenix to see this many patriots, this many nice, friendly, smiling, conservative people. God bless you. Keep up the work. And Kelly J. Patriot on behalf of Liberty Report. We'll see you again soon. And remember, you can support Liberty Report by going to mypillow.com. And our promo code is God Wins. So notwithstanding what the government and others are trying to do to us, we need to stand up, step up, be strong, and help support Liberty Report, Kelly J. Patriot. Got to get our country back. And in the meantime, like I mentioned earlier, we've got to seek the truth and keep the faith. Until next time, God bless you. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.